I easily started to see that, and I started to share that with other individuals.
Moving from the corporate kind of world to being self-employed, and it is a huge jump, and it can be very scary because Hi, everyone. It is Shaelene McInnis with Books in Line and also with the Ontario Wellness Network. Thank you for joining us today. I feel a little silly because I'm doing a podcast with this wonderful woman that I've just been recently introduced to. Her name is Christine McIver. Now, we started talking, just a friend had introduced us because she's a specialist in everything to do with podcasts. Hence, I feel like perhaps I'm being judged a little bit. That's okay. Honestly, we all have something to learn. Education never stops. So I'm very, very, very happy to introduce her to you. When we were talking, we were just last week, we were having a conversation and finding out the kind of work that she does. And I think it's absolutely spectacular. I love to support everyone when they have their own business, especially women. I think it takes that extra effort to run your own business as a woman. I think it's just a different thing altogether. And so this is someone I absolutely am very happy to introduce you to. Christine, please tell us what you do.
Thank you, Shaelene. Well, thank you, everyone. I am Christine McIver. I am a business optimization expert. So I find the gaps in people's businesses, and I make the crazy go away and bring pleasure in. I love business. I think business is the most pleasurable thing that you can do for me. And when I realized, Shaelene, that other people didn't have the kind of pleasure I had, I thought, why? And so I started to really look at what it is that they were doing. And, everybody they're great at something. Everyone is great at something. And something is simple to people that is maybe not simple to others. And so things that were very, very simple and easy for me, and that just popped out, I easily started to see that, and I started to share that with other individuals. So I started my business in 2008, and in 2011, I was approached about having my own radio show, an online radio show. And I had no idea what that meant, but every pore in my body flipped out when they asked me, and I couldn't say no. I absolutely couldn't say no. So I started my own show. It was a live radio show, and then it was turned into a podcast. And it was very funny because the very first show that I did, I cried for the first 15 minutes. I was overwhelmed. I was excited. I was grateful. I was every feeling you can imagine. And at the break, the producer came online and said, "Christine, we're having a hard time hearing you." And I thought, well, that's unusual. Now, back in the day, we used Skype. So to call in with my telephone. So I called in with my telephone, finished out the show, and a friend called me and said, "Oh my gosh, that was great." And I'm like, "Did you listen to the show?" And she said, "Did you get a little choked up at the beginning?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, a little." And I really felt like somebody had my back, that totally didn't come through. But it was like, okay, if that's the worst it gets, I can keep going. So I did. And a couple of years in, I was on another platform, and the owner asked if I'd ever thought about producing. And I'm like, what? I went to school for human resources. I was in human resources for 20 plus years. And I didn't go to school for any of this technical stuff, but I loved computers. I have always loved computers. And she said, "You're good with computers." And she said, "You're good with teaching people things." And I
Isn't that great?
Well, there was a point in my life where I said, I am going to ask more questions instead of making snap decisions at saying no. So right. So I kept asking questions, and then I started producing, and within 6 months I was the least owner of that platform, and I loved it. And all of a sudden everything started to bloom, and a couple of years later I launched the Inspired Choices Network. So I'm the founder and the CEO of the Inspired Choices Network, and what we do a lot more than what I did in the beginning, but it's a live radio show that turns into a podcast, and we podcast that out to 80 podcast platforms and 55 live platforms. And then we turn that into a TV show. And that TV show is then distributed to 300 plus platforms. So I'm a systems brain. So I love to create systems that are duplicatable and easy and make it more fun for people. And so my team can do the work with pleasure and ease as well.
Actually, I love so many of the things that you just said. I think this is why we got along so well when we had that first conversation. Moving from the corporate kind of world to being self-employed, and it is a huge jump, and it can be very scary because you're changing your entire mindset. So I remember when I decided to leave the corporate world and start my own business, it was frightening, and you feel like you're on your own. And this is the first thing that you're saying about filling the holes. Your group of clients are probably a lot like my group of clients. I think probably a lot of your clients are probably, overwhelmed, right? I know that mine can be overwhelmed, right? Yeah. So you providing these social media podcast, not the word help, collaborations. We'll talk about that again too. That's a good one. It's fantastic because, when business owners, especially when you start out, you're trying to do everything.
Yes.
So my clients, for example, are completely overwhelmed, many of them, because they're trying to run their own business and they have bookkeeping and taxes and they're not sure how to do it properly. And the consequences can be bad. And we have a lot of clients who come to us because they're nervous, or the Canada Revenue Agency has contacted them and they don't know what to do about it. And that is our area of expertise. And like you, I love what I do. Absolutely love it. But I'm also smart enough to hire what I need. Like, I know where my strengths are. Right. Obviously, you know where your strengths are with your podcast producing, bringing in awesome clients and helping them grow and be successful. And our strengths with Books in Line, of course, would be taxes, bookkeeping, knowing what to write off, how not to raise red flags with the CRA. I do a whole workshop on that. I like that. And I also like the story you just told when you said you started to cry because you were so happy. I'm like, that is so authentic. I hope she kept that in because I would want to keep that in. The other thing was the way you're repurposing something. So you're producing the podcast and then you're repurposing it for so many different things. So could you give me an example, a practical example of something along those lines?
Well, sorry, this is what happens. My brain goes into 16 different places at the same time. I apologize. One of the biggest things that I've watched over the years is when someone creates a show, when they create an episode, and we call ours a production. It is more than a podcast. When people think of podcasts, they think of an audio clip, of some kind. And people are calling a podcast like a 1 minute, like they put out something 1 minute and they call that a podcast.
Right.
The word podcast means previously recorded. That's what that word means. And what is very interesting is I see people, they will create an episode, whether it's a podcast or a TV show, they'll create this content and then they'll put it out. They're excited to put it out, which, yes, put it out there. Content is king. And then it's like they just put it away. They forget about it. They go on to the next creation. Now, what we do is a weekly show so that you're building consistency, so that you are showing up, holding yourself accountable, and also creating consistent content, which again puts you out there among the top elite that are doing this, right? So, but what is really important to know is that your content is king, no matter if it was a year ago, 6 months ago, or last week. And so taking that, even the full piece of content, and taking it and putting it back out there again, promoting it again, speaking about a section within that podcast. So when we're doing our episodes, we have a producer that works with our hosts. And because it's live, what we're doing is we are what's called scraping the live show. So during the show, the producer is actually taking down notable quotes. And when they're taking down the notable quotes, we store the notable quotes, and then the host could take those quotes to remind themselves, what did I say in that show? What did
Right.
I say in that episode? So we're usually anywhere from 8 to 15 quotes. So you can be
Right.
taking your quote and then you can be putting that out there and you can be talking about what was in that episode.
Right.
So usually when you do a show, you're talking about a lot of different things throughout the episode, right?
Yes.
And so you can take it, repurpose the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that you can do is you can be taking the quotes themselves and you can be putting those into a newsletter. So that's another way to repurpose your content.
Mm-hmm.
What you want to keep in mind is that people consume content and they learn differently. So if you look at all the ways that people consume, they consume it auditorially, visually, and by reading.
Right. I love
So
that.
if you as a host can have your content be accessible in all forms,
Mm-hmm.
in some manner, that is going to attract people on all levels on how they
Mm-hmm.
absorb how what's fast and easy for them and how they learn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another way to do that. Another popular way that you'll be seeing a lot more of that is where people will take and they'll take a clip of their content and they will just put that maybe 1 to 3 minutes. I wouldn't go past 3 minutes. They'll take that and they'll put that out there. There's some great programs out there to help you to edit these clips,
Right.
and you can put them into different sizing formats. So
Mm-hmm.
you can be doing it like YouTube, so the landscape, you could do it
Yes.
square, or you can do it portrait, which is for the reels. If it's video,
Mm-hmm.
that's for the reels. Or if it's just auditorio, you can just do the audio clip with an image in the background, and then you could
Mm-hmm.
have waveforms on it and really interesting things. And also you
Mm-hmm.
can have them transcribed so that people are able to read while they listen as well. In
That's
fact,
excellent.
that's a really cool thing to do, is because a lot of people will be looking at their phones when they're at work when they shouldn't be, and they will have the volume off. So if you have the words transcribed over top,
Right.
then they can read what you're talking about and perhaps come back to that again in the future.
Wow, you just said so many awesome things there. First of all, I'm just going to let anyone, like so many, I'm taking notes, right? This is me. So, because I'm like you, I'm thinking 1,000 things. If I just write down words, then I'll know to go back to it. A few things that you said there. First of all, just so everyone knows, I will absolutely have all the contact information available here with Christine. So you'll be able to contact her directly and her team. And if for some reason you want to speak to her, but you can't find the information, give us a call at Books Online. We're happy to put you in touch with Christine. I liked what you said about taking clips or taking certain parts or taking lines and writing them down, because think about what you and I have already spoken about just in this podcast. We spoke about overwhelm, hiring people to do the things that you are not strong at, so that you can focus on what you're strong at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much centered on that idea. Um, I also wrote, this is the other thing when I was looking at, because we're going to discuss pricing and stuff as well with everyone. I know that Christine has a number of packages, but the one thing I really enjoy is sharing educational content. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a great value. Anyone who is self-employed, it's not that you just want to do taxes, for example, or you just want to do bookkeeping. We always put out tax tip of the week. We have tons of stuff. Anytime something changes with the government or the CRA or everything with COVID, CERB, the CBIL loan, we are constantly making sure we're also sharing educational content. And I just think that's really nice. And I
Mm-hmm.
like that you offer that with your packages. There's all kinds of different classes that you're
Mm-hmm.
offering. Um, uh, that's what I have in my notes. That's what I have in my notes. And I also, the other thing is, this would fit into one of my focuses, which is cash flow. I always, businesses fail over and over and over again, and the biggest reason is cash flow, not understanding cash flow. So why your business is so great with cash flow is one of the things I encourage businesses to do to increase their cash flow is take what you have and use it in all kinds of different ways, because you're not paying extra for it. Like, you'll
Mm-hmm.
have a podcast, but now what else can you do with this podcast?
Right.
Right. So you're not spending more money, but you're certainly sharing it with more people and a
Right.
nice general market. And Yeah. So I think that I like that idea very much. That fits right into cash flow. I'm going to ask you, because, I'm cheating. I'm going to ask you, can you give me maybe top 3 mistakes people make when doing podcasts? And if I'm doing it, go right ahead. And then maybe after that, maybe the top 3, well, no, I guess it's combined. It's the same question. Top 3 mistakes and how to fix them, and how to do better. Top 3 tips. So mistakes and tips.
Yes.
Do it all together.
I want to just add on to something that you had said about, everyone is an expert in something. And when we focus in that, I mean, that's where we're going to grow our business. That's where we're going to grow our revenue and our cash flow. What I've seen with people, and I still see it like all these years later, what I've seen, and I did the same thing, is we try to do it under budget. How can I, oh, I can just do this, or I can just do that. And what we end up doing is everything except our expertise.
That's right.
So you want to get your voice out there. You want to be heard. You want to be seen. You want people to learn to trust you and then to hire you. But you're trying to do all the things to get to that space. Well, if you were to focus on your area of expertise and you were to hire people like yourself, like myself, to assist us, you will go farther faster. That's the one thing.
Completely.
I know 100% that if I'd have done that, I would have probably gotten to the place I am today, probably 50% faster, if not.
Absolutely.
Even sooner. Because, the time and effort that we have to take and the frustration that it creates when we're trying to learn something and we're trying to do it all on our own. We're in an information overload highway and we need the map to navigate through. And so when I'm working with hosts, I'm really showing them how to focus on their expertise and how to highlight their expertise. And so one of the biggest things that people do is in creating a podcast is they're worrying about the technology and they're worrying about these other pieces, or they're only want to talk and they're not paying attention to what's going on. So I created this program called Do This, Don't Do That, because of I would see things and I'd be like, oh my gosh. One of my biggest pet peeves is people that have their laptop open, right? And depending on their eyesight, the location of their laptop, so here's their laptop, depending on it, they will either have the lid back too far, so they're looking down a pipe, or they will have it up too high, and then they'll have the lid coming down, and then they're either looking down or they're looking up. So people can, it's very weird when somebody's looking down at you. We want to have eye contact. We want to have it at eye level. And the other thing is, no one wants to look up somebody's nose hairs. Like,
so number 1, eye level.
Eye level. What you want to do is you want to create a setup so that there's no distraction from you and what you're saying.
Very good. I love that. No distractions, eye level. Love it.
Right. That's very, very important. You want to watch your lighting. Now you have light coming in and you have curtains. So while the light is there, you're also blocking the lighting, which is important. Now, if I open my curtains, they're huge. I don't have blinds. They're just big, heavy curtains. I would completely wash out. You wouldn't see me at all. Now, in addition to that, you want to have placement of lights around you and your setup. So in this course, and this course is complimentary, so I'm happy to give that link to you for anyone that's interested in learning. So I will actually show you, I'll bring in the lights. Like, for instance, this is one of my lights. And so this is an angle light. And it's a very cool little light. So I will have that on the one side. And then I have a ring light on the other. What if you wear glasses, Christine? How do I use a ring light if I have glasses? Because of the glare. So those are some things that you really want to just take some time, play with your lighting,
set yourself up. Yeah.
I have a ceiling light on. If I turn my ceiling light on, this whole setup would change.
Right.
So you, depending on your room that you're in, you
Mhm.
want to play with the lighting, and the lighting will be different, very
Mhm.
different from one room to another. The lighting will be
Yes.
different at the time of day that you're doing this.
Mhm.
So I do my personal show Wednesday evenings at 8 o'clock. So it's usually dark. So then the lighting situation changes. So what I have quite bright now, I would have those lights softer.
Right.
Right? So you want to pay attention to that. You also want to pay attention to your background. Okay. So
Yes.
I've got, a plant here. I've got some standing things here. I have my little pink elephant. And so you
Pink
want to
elephant
have,
in the room. Oh my God, I love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's so
Somebody
good.
gave, when I was in HR, somebody gave that to me because I said,
That's what.
okay, let's talk about the pink elephant in the room. So the setup is set so it's professional looking.
Mhm.
It's not empty, because you don't want to
Mhm.
just have a blank wall, because then honestly, a blank wall has people pay attention to the blank wall.
Wow. Yeah.
You
Wow.
want to create some depth without distraction.
I'm so glad you're telling me this now, because this is not normally where I would do my podcast, because this is my home office inside. But normally I work in my she shed. We have built
Right,
me an office in the forest, and you'll see that soon, because that would normally be where I'm working out of. But my husband's working back there with saws and stuff and
right.
electric tool things. So I'm like, I'll just be inside. So I'm glad you're
Yeah,
sharing
yeah.
that with us now. And yes, please do share that link. Do this, don't do that. I'd
I
love to
will.
share that with everybody. Yeah, anytime you're doing any Zoom meetings or anything, if you do something like this online, I'd love to share that as well. This is really excellent. The information you're giving me, and to tie back with what you're saying. For example, I know when I started my business, I was trying to do everything. I was doing the social media, which I despise because it's not my area of strength. My area of
Hmm.
strength is negotiating with the CRA, or making sure people understand very clearly what they can and cannot write off for expenses, business expenses, because almost nobody knows all of that. Um, and it brings me back to something that I speak about a lot, which is highest and best use of time. So my highest and best use of time was not doing my social media. Say it took me 10 hours a week. Now I would pay someone who is qualified and who loves doing that work, and I pay them 2 hours a week. That frees up 10 hours of my
Hmm.
time. Now, what's my highest and best use of time with 10 hours extra a week? So I would have gotten where I am now so much faster too. Like you said, 50%. I'm like, oh my God, 300% faster. I would be if
It's crazy.
you're not, sales and marketing, social media, bookkeeping, taxes. Like there's just so much to do in a
There is.
business. Find new clients. Make sure you're finding the right client. This is a whole other subject. I could do an entire show on that. So I love that you said that, because looking at your highest and best use of time, if this is not your specialty, but you want to get in this area of business, and really most businesses should be taking advantage of this kind of services that you're offering. Yeah, obviously, someone like me would hire someone like you, because
Hmm.
you know what you're doing in this area. You're passionate about it. You love it. You want to help business. I always like to work with people who support businesses, like who love their job and really want others to succeed, because
Hmm.
that's what I do. But I just do that with like my Ontario Wellness digital magazine, and
Hmm.
with bookkeeping and taxes with me and my team. We have a fantastic team at Books Online. So I like that, because highest and best use of time is so key. I
Yes,
appreciate that. Now, is there
it
any
really is.
last minute tips you want to give us? Last minute things you want to tell us?
If you're not having fun,
Mm-hmm.
then you need to look at this. You
Mm-hmm.
really, really need to look at this. Your time is the resource that is the most valuable. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're frustrated with trying to edit a podcast, or you're frustrated with trying to get, when we say something amazing when we're doing a show and we
Mm-hmm.
go, oh my gosh, I got to go back and listen to that. I got to go back and grab that.
Yes.
Right. So then you're going to double back your time again. Right.
Yeah.
When you have these different things set up and you're able to really just keep expanding and growing yourself, that's the biggest thing that I've learned about myself. And I watch other hosts as we talk about what's happened since we had our shows, is I've grown. I have grown. I've become a stronger, more confident expert in my field,
Mm-hmm.
because I keep showing up and I keep speaking. So That's my biggest thing to tell people is
Mm-hmm.
keep showing up, keep talking, get the support you need so that you
Yes.
can be that global authority. You can
Mm-hmm.
be out there and you can rise to the top with what you know. Don't stay, don't stay quiet. Don't stay a one day. Something I was being interviewed in a car once, and this jumped out of my mouth, and I'm so grateful that I remembered it. Until your voice is added to the conversation does not truly begin.
Ah,
I really believe that everyone has something unique to bring to the conversation.
yes.
And you
Yes.
came here for a reason. You
Mm-hmm.
are an expert for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We need you. We need you to speak up. We need you to bring what you know
Mm-hmm.
out to the world so that the world can be created in a more joyful, happy way.
Yes. Yeah.
We have the ability, but when we're hiding because we don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to do this or that, we're
Yes.
actually robbing ourselves and the world from our expertise.
That's fantastic. That's right. And sometimes I've certainly been guilty of myself of procrastinating on something because, and then it's just, I'm wasting time because I'm not sure of how to do something
Mhm.
or I don't have the confidence about something. So this has been an ongoing lesson where if I'm in that position, I'm just going to give that to someone else, right? Just give it
Yes.
to someone else. Who, not how. There's a great book, by the way, everyone.
Mm,
Who, not how. It's a fantastic book saying that the way to run your business is making sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people. And that's something I
right.
do all the time. I try to constantly surround myself with the
I
right
like that.
people, whether it's clients, people I'm doing podcasts with, my employees, anyone. So I'm going to wrap this up, Christine. Thank you so much. You
Thank
have
you.
given me more information in this short period of time than I could have even imagined. I'm going to have to watch this podcast over and over and over again. Again, for everyone, we will be sharing all of the contact information for Christine. And if you're in business and you want to learn more about production of podcasts and repurposing, I strongly suggest you give her a call or send her an email, contact her in one of the many ways she is out there. Christine, thank you very much for your time. I
Thank
really,
you.
really appreciate, on behalf of all the listeners, we really, really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.